The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a trade deal between African Union member states which aims to create a single market by free movement and a single currency union. In March 2018, the agreement was signed by 44 African countries in Rwanda. Now, Nigeria is set to sign the free trade deal at the upcoming African Union Summit in Niger. The free trade agreement will create a tariff-free continent that can allow local businesses boost intra-African trade, rev up industrialization, and create jobs. The African Development Bank says the deal will boost intra-African trade between 20 to 23% of all trade merchandise by 2025. The African Free Trade Agreement seeks to eliminate tariffs between member states, create a market of 1.2 billion people with a GDP of more than $2.2 trillion, and also increase infrastructure and technology across board. Let's put this into perspective. I have with me two economists, one in Lagos and one in Abuja. Usilama Okufo is here in the studio, and Professor Ken Ife is joining us live from our Abuja studios. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
Let me start from Abuja.
Thank you for having me.
Bro, finally we are hearing Nigeria will sign this document anytime from now at the upcoming meeting in Niger. What do you think? What has changed over time?
Well, I think there are compelling reasons why Nigeria should sign, without a doubt. And these reasons are political, diplomatic, economic, name it. A very long list of reasons why we should sign. And strategic as well. And I have no apologies for the fact that the government delayed, because they needed to consult very widely on this. And because the people that wear the shoe know where it hurts the most, especially our manufacturers. And secondly, Nigeria has always been at a high ground when it comes to Africa regional integration issues. We are the biggest contributor to ECOWAS, 60 to 75%, to the same NEPAD, Africa Union. We are the biggest concentrator, and we are the big boy in Africa, the biggest economy, biggest population. So the thing is that even the whole effort were originated around Nigeria. The Lagos Plan of Action, the 1991 Africa Economic Community, and then our diplomats actually led the acceleration of this particular agreement. So, Ambassador Osakwe. So the thing is, and we even want to be these headquarters of this AfCFTA. So we have the gravitas. It's a very important decision that we have made. Now, why is it necessary that we had this extensive dialogue? Is because once bitten, twice shy. If you look at our experience in ECOWAS, there are three levels of integration. One is the FCTA, which we are looking at, which is free market, just to have a liberalized market. But there's a second stage, which is customs union, and a third stage, which is economic union, where you talk about single currency. In our ECOWAS regime, we have actually transcended the three. We have not actually concluded the other two. We have CET, so we're still a little way away from complete customs union. And we have gone so far. We have a single passport. We have fully implemented the ground zero, which is a free trade area, with single passport and all of that. But the thing is, why it is important for Nigeria is because for other members to join, if you don't join this, you wouldn't have a say. So that's why we must join. But all of them, the rest of Africa, will have to accede to level 2, which is our CET and the customs union, and they also have to accede to our stage 3. So we are up there, and they are somewhere down there. So the point is, we need to play ball, because our banks are in practically every country in Africa, most of them. Our multinationals, like Dangote, are in all over the place in Africa. And we have our oil and gas businesses that are also all over the place. So we have the most to gain in this than any other country in Africa. Look at the importation report yesterday, 2 days ago, capital importation report. There are 8 African countries led by South Africa that are investing heavily in Nigeria. South Africa is almost 800 million in last quarter. You know, so all of them are eyeing Nigeria's market because they have confidence in Nigerian market, and so is everybody. So we stand to gain the most. So we need to look at it, and if you look at the origin and the source, the channels through this money is coming, 80% of it are coming from South African banks, Stanbic, Barclays, and then Standard Chartered, and South Africa Rand Bank. So the issue is that we have to target these people, and we have to make sure, if you look at import, 80% of our manufacturing capacity in Nigeria are actually dependent on imported raw materials. We can source these raw materials within African continent, and then use diplomacy, economic diplomacy, to ensure that we have trade reciprocity between whoever is supplying something to us and what we are supplying out to them. You know, so there are a lot of mileages, things we can send to them, things they can bring to us at reduced cost, and building the level of intra-regional trade. We have so much to gain.
Okay, Prof. Now let me ask Mr. Osilama now the same question. Now, Prof said we need to play ball so as to get what we want. Now let's look at the benefits of this trade act itself, this free trade, this Continental Free Trade Agreement. What are the benefits? Let's just try to itemize some of it, what Nigeria intends to gain from this.
Now, I think to a very large extent, Professor Ife actually dealt with the issues. You see, when we're looking at this, it's actually two sides to a coin. There is the contagion, which is somewhat mostly negative, right? And then there's the convergence. The convergence towards areas where productive activities are cheaper, right? And because there is, right? And because there is a free flow of goods, services, and people, right? Of course, then the tendency for those goods and services to move across borders cheaper. So that's convergence, which is positive. Like I said, the flip side is when you're talking of contagion, it's mostly negative, but not entirely. Contagion in the sense that because of the fact that there's interconnectivity, you have close relationships. Essentially, borders are broken down, right? Barriers are eliminated. The linkage effect is almost, seamless. When something goes wrong in one country or in one organization that has strength, like you mentioned Dangote, for example, it could actually have a negative snowballing effect across borders. A typical example of this is what happened in 1997, the Southeast Asian crisis. Because of the interconnectivity between the Southeast Asian countries, when the Thai baht, the currency, when it crashed, it affected the ringgit and other currencies within and around Southeast Asia, and it took them quite a while to rebound. So that's the negative part. But like you rightly pointed out, Nigeria is, we have a lot to gain, we equally have a lot to lose. So those are the reasons, and I'm sure absolutely the reasons why the president
took his time. Yeah,
took his time, to really understudy and understand, why he had to sign. I'm sure it wasn't because they didn't know it was good, but because of the fact that we are, like Prof said, we are the big boy, right? So it's not like we are the ones who really need this to happen.
Exactly.
The other countries need us more than we need them. So it was for them to wait on us. And again, let's not forget the fact that South Africa didn't sign too at that point. And these are the two biggest economies in Africa. So like you highlighted during your presentation, issues of goods and services moving freely. Again, when productivity becomes cheaper, the process becomes less cumbersome, and then cost of goods and services become cheaper. So that it has a multiplier effect on cost, right, and standard of living. Issues of transfer of technology, neither here nor there, because we still have, as a continent, we have a long way to go in that regard. I mean, what you don't have, you can't transfer, except you steal it. Okay. And then again, diplomacy, you know, there will be a lot more understanding amongst ourselves. And then, to a large extent, things will become, will be seamless. You know, so again, when you look at the fact that we are 1.2 billion people, yes, right? There's a whole lot of markets. Yes. Before I came on, I actually got a call from somebody who was asking, okay, he said he's in logistics business, right? How would this benefit his business? I said, well, essentially, what it means is that you now have a bigger market, a bigger space to operate in. It means that as someone who moves, products from Lagos to Kaduna, Kaduna to Kano, right, and Maiduguri, you can now move to Lome, Togo. You can now move to Benin Republic. You can now move to Algiers, you can now move across the continent. So your opportunities are bigger, even for the banking sector. It means that issues bordering on funds transfer, the cost is larger.
Okay, let me ask Prof this. Prof, I want to ask you this question. This argument of the population here in Nigeria, close to 200 million people, and our manufacturing sector, they've come out to say that this might, it's an argument that it might affect the sector negatively when products come in from other African countries and they flood the market with it, that it might kill our manufacturing sector, coupled with the fact that we have infrastructure challenge here, power and all of that. How does this come to you, looking at this trade agreement?
That argument doesn't stand. I'll tell you why. Nigeria has 80% of the manufacturing capacity in the ECOWAS region. You go to other countries, you see in ECOWAS is our products that they are having. Apart from what they get from France, mostly they get from Nigeria. Even some of the imported products, because we have the capacity, we break the bulk in Lagos or in Onitsha or in Aba, and then they come and pick it up cheaper. You know how the prices go. If you want one single item from China, and you can under 20 containers of it, you can have it literally for nothing. But we have the capacity to buy so much and break the bulk, and they all filter through the borders to come and buy them. So that is talking even about that, looking at that economy. But the central issue is that at the moment, we are being inundated by smuggled goods and dumping of products from Asian countries. That's not from African countries. We can deal with those in African countries. And in fact, in the level where we are, which is free trade area, we have two protocols that guide our transactions here. One is the protocol on free movement. Now, free movement of goods, people, services, right of establishment, and capital. Now, the goods referred to here are primary agricultural produce. The second protocol kicks in the moment you do value addition, and that is the trade liberalization scheme. In the case of ECOWAS, it's called the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, where you have to demonstrate the rule of origin, that you have at least 30% value addition on these products. Companies that are going to register under this scheme, we have to register their products, register their capacities, and then that is known to everybody in the region. And as you move your produce from your refined and processed goods from one country to another, the customs will check to see whether this is consistent with what you have declared and what quantity have you brought into this country. And then that goes to Benin Republic, our border. They go and check what is coming from Benin. And they will tell me when I come for inspection, Ogaluko, they are sending into Nigeria 4 times more than their capacity, which means they are just importing them and using them to stage the. So they have all that. It's documented and regulated. But a much bigger issue is this. Can you imagine why, despite all this, we have problem with Ghana, and Ghana is expelling our workers, and there's nothing you can do, our traders. They run to ECOWAS Court of Justice, and the ECOWAS Court of Justice say we don't have jurisdiction. They only have jurisdiction on human rights issues, but not on trade economic issues. But in the context of the AfCFTA, we have a dispute resolution mechanism. That means that we can now take on South Africa in their xenophobia attack on Nigerians, in Angolan attack on Nigerians. There is now a resort. We can resort to dispute settlement. And we can say, well, you've got to be in it. We have to sign and be in it so that we can invoke those provisions. Okay. And then say to South Africa, you know what, you try this again, we block all your goods coming to Nigeria, this, that, and you have trade reciprocity. Because there's nothing, we have every agroecological zone in Africa. Most of them are in the middle belt, in our middle district. We have every, whatever you don't grow in Nigeria, you grow in South Africa. Like apple, and we do apple, but there are so many things you could grow out there. So we had everything. You have very little reason to import some of the input, agro input, the industrial input. We can get everything we need from Africa. Okay. Conversely, we can sell everything we have in Nigeria to all other countries in Africa. We have all the oil, we have all the gas. Yes, we can refine them and send it to all of them. We don't need to bother about crossing the Atlantic. But I want to address one question that my colleague raised about transportation. Now, let me tell you the case. Okay, the case of transportation is this. There are 2 hubs in Africa. In the east, around Kenya, or the cheapest location where you can have containers come at 1,500 naira from China, Japan, Asia, all of them. That is the cheapest position. Then in Nigeria is the cheapest point. You can have all the things from America, Brazil, Europe, arrive at about 1,500. But to now move goods from down to South Africa and come over to Kenya, or move vice versa, you add another $1,000. Now you cut this off because you are now having a rail, transatlantic rail, trans-Saharan rail, running all the way from Mombasa all the way to Cameroon and connect to Nigeria. Now, that is it. You will cut off all that cost.
Okay, Prof.
But today...
Let me get Mr. Silama's view on that. I know he wants to actually react to the issue surrounding the manufacturers and how it affects them too. Please go on.
No, I mean, essentially, what it means is that we need to up our game. It's an opportunity. We have a large productive capacity, right? And the resources. Like, Prof said, and I agree, we are the major players here. We are the major player here. And what it just essentially means that manufacturers now have a larger space, a bigger market, right? So what we need to do essentially as a country is to ensure that we put policies in place. The fact that you're having a free trade agreement doesn't mean that you still do not have your local policies to execute. We need to put the right policies in place to encourage and step up our productive capacity, manufacturing. And then, the market is there. Again, too, it will enhance, infrastructure development, especially in the area of rail infrastructure and even roads. Because what it means is that when these goods have to move from point A to point B, you necessarily have to develop your infrastructure to meet those that are coming from other areas. So it's an opportunity for Africa to grow infrastructurally. Let's hope again to the one road policy of China, right? Will meet us. There will be a convergence at some point, that will help Africa to emerge from where it is right now.
Those policies must also addressing infrastructure and all of that. You've touched on that. I know we can go on. This topic seems to be very interesting, and there's going to be another day we're going to really look at this critically and the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But meanwhile, let me thank you, gentlemen, the economist Osilama Okofor and Prof. Ken Ife. Thank you very much for joining us from Abuja there, giving us insights